Great morning, great morning, great morning, great morning.
Good morning, guys. Good morning. Hope you guys are having a great Saturday morning.
Good to
Hope you
see
guys
everybody.
are doing well. It's a beautiful day here in sunny Virginia Beach.
Yep. Do me a favor, really quickly, guys. If you're just jumping in, I want you guys to, in fact, put in the chat where you're tuning in from. And what is the temperature in your neck of the woods? What's the temperature in your neck of the woods? What's
in
going
your
on?
in your Al Roker.
Yeah, in my Al Roker, channeling my Al Roker this morning. What's going on? We got our girl Roz Jones from Jacksonville, Florida. What's the temperature like in Jacksonville, Roz? Let us know. Let us know, guys. We're getting ready to go live here in about 30 seconds. Welcome to Breakfast with the Brookses. For those of you guys who are just hopping in, my name's Glenn P. Brooks Jr. Cherie is here with me. We're getting ourselves set up. We're getting ready to work this out. But while you're coming in the room, really quickly, if you can, we just want to know, where are you tuning in from, and at what is the temperature in your city? What's the temperature in your
In
city?
your neck of the woods,
In
as Al Roker would
As
say.
Al Roker would say, in your neck of how things in your neck of the woods. So, Cherie, today we're going to be talking about something that really, this is part 2 to a topic that we started actually 2 weeks ago. Last week we took a quick break and dealt
Right.
with blended families, but today we're going to talk a lot about this idea and this notion of two people who are married getting together and building a business and saving their marriage.
Yes.
Miami, it is 81 degrees. Jenny, good to see you. Nikkei, what's going on? 79 degrees
in
in
Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
as they would say.
Merlin.
Let's go ahead and get this cartoon character out of the way. Welcome, everybody.
Hey,
Good morning, good morning,
guys.
good morning. Welcome,
Good morning.
welcome to Breakfast with the Brookses. For those of you guys who are just hopping in, again, my name's Glenn P. Brooks Jr. This lovely, light-skinned young lady next to me is the lovely
Cherie Brooks Jr., and it's a pleasure to be with you guys this morning. Hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful Saturday morning. Hope you had a great week this week.
Yep, yeah.
I know a lot of people were off yesterday. The official, I guess, day for the 4th of July was yesterday, so a lot of people were off yesterday, but today is actually the 4th, and so I know a lot of people are having cookouts and things like that today, celebrating. I know a lot of cities are not doing the traditional fireworks because of everything that's going on with COVID.
Yep.
But hope you guys get to spend some time with your family, get to hang out.
Let's do something new.
Get outside, even though we're still in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic.
Yep.
Get outside. You can get outside and enjoy the weather. Even if it's going to do a social distance visit with your family, you can visit outside so you don't have to have your mask on and keep your distance.
Absolutely,
But get
guys.
out the house. Get out the house.
We're excited, guys. Do me a huge favor if you can. Go ahead and share this out to someone and let them know that we are on and we're live. This is Breakfast with the Brookses. And today, babe, we're going to talk about something that I think is really, really important, particularly for families or marriages that are trying to make marriage work, and at the same time, they're growing a business. Real quick, while people are still joining us, let's talk a little bit about some of our background and sort of what qualifies for those people that didn't catch the first part of this. By the way, you can go to our YouTube channel, catch the full replay of part 1 when we dealt with help. My business partner and my spouse is the same person, and and we all need some help.
We all need some help. Yeah, you guys can. I know for us, being business partners, I think Glenn had alluded to this earlier. Anybody that was on Instagram or Facebook, we kind of cheated. When we met, we actually met kind of in the capacity of working together.
Yeah.
And so we learned how to interact with each other more so on a professional level before we even became friends, before we got married. So it was kind of an easy transition for us.
Easier,
yeah. Because we still have our challenges. We've still had our challenges
God
with
knows.
working together.
Yeah, we're not perfect, and I don't want it to come across like, we've not had any bumps in the road. As a matter of fact, that's the reason why Cherie and I actually are beginning to really commit to finishing a book before the year is out on this very subject, because it wasn't easy.
Right.
We did some very specific things in
Right.
order to be able to achieve not only a successful marriage, but also a successful business.
Right, and I think having your priorities in order is essential, and we're going to kind of get into that today. But I think you guys have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to work together, you both have to be on the same page, and I think that's the biggest thing. And you also have to have your priorities in order. I'm a firm believer that your marriage should be your number one priority, even before the kids, before your job, before your business, because without that, there is nothing. When you get married, you make a covenant to each other as husband and wife first and foremost. And so that should be your primary responsibility. That should be the primary goal. And we've said this publicly, if our marriage were to get into major trouble because of the stresses of the business or anything like that, we would let the business go first.
No, that's true. And I think that unfortunately, a lot of people really are not committed to both equally. Cherie and I, when we started out 5 years ago and we launched our business, it was really out of some of the things that we had experienced in our marriage. So as relationship coaches, what we do in our business is a reflection of how we lived our life.
Right.
And how we're living our life. And so for us, they almost work hand in hand. So we didn't want to be the hypocrites that had a thriving business and a failing marriage, right? And so it is really important for us to make that solid. That's why we can honestly say that if there's no real solid marriage, then our business isn't going to work.
Right, and unfortunately, we've seen far too many families fall apart because they get so focused on the business and they lose sight of the relationship, and one has to give, and unfortunately in many cases it's the relationship that gives and not the business.
Absolutely.
And we've unfortunately, like I said, we've seen that firsthand through people that we've coached or friends of ours that has become the case. And that has helped to motivate us in a sense to make sure that we keep our priorities in order so that does not happen to us.
Yeah, that's not good. So guys, if you're ready for this content, put ready in the chat. If you're ready for this content, good to see you guys here this morning. Again, please share this out. Even if you catch us and we just did a little promo on Facebook, share that out and let people know that we're here. But we're going to kind of rattle some things off and talk about it. We alluded to this on the first part that we did when we did part one for this particular talk 2 weeks ago. So you can catch that on our YouTube channel. We also want to encourage you that if you are in a relationship and you want to get some coaching or you want to join a community that really can help to nurture your relationship, we certainly want to encourage you to become a part of the MAPS Relationship Academy. Cherie and I created that particular product or service about 3.5 years ago. And it's an online group coaching platform where we get the opportunity to work with couples, parents, singles who want to really live not only their best life in terms of purpose, but that they work on their person.
Right.
And that they're able to develop that person into the most whole and healthy person that they could be, so that when that time comes and they get married, they're coming to the marriage as a whole individual, not parts of a person.
Right, and actually for singles, we have a singles intensive that's coming up later this month that's going to start, where it's like a toolkit for singles, where we'll give them some of the foundational things that they need to better understand themselves and be able to identify a person that's potentially a good mate for them.
Yeah.
And so we have that coming up. We'll have information on that on our website. Well, I think it's already on there. On the website, you can go to www.glennpbrooksjr.com to get more information on that, but that's starting later this month.
Yeah.
And in order to get into our singles community, actually, you have to have gone through that intensive to get those basic principles.
Yeah. There's about a half a dozen core principles that we
Right.
teach our singles, because if you're going to make your marriage work, we honestly believe that you have to really have really done the work on you as an individual in order to bring something of value to that marriage. And so there are core things, everything from communication skills, knowing your personality type,
Your
your
values.
values, understanding what they are. We're drilling down on all of that stuff. And the intensive is jumping off the middle of this month. And so we're excited about that. What's up, George Hawkins? Great to see you, my friend. Jenny, no, we have not talked about that yet, although we are going to touch on that. What's going on? Everybody in the MAPS community who are jumping in, great to see.
Good morning.
We got Christine jumping in, dancing for His Glory Studios. Good to see you, Christine. Shout out to the MMC. If you're a part of the MAPS Relationship Academy in any way, either you're a part of the MMC or you're a part of the MAPS Relationship Academy, do me a favor, put a hashtag MAPS Rocks in the chat. We're going to get started because I think that this is really, really critical. Guys, today we're going to be giving you guys 6 steps. 6 steps in order to really be able to make sure that both your business and your marriage flourish. Put that in the chat. 6 steps in order to make your business and your marriage flourish. I think, Cherie, you said something that I think that bears a little bit repeating, and that is you and I came to the conclusion that if the marriage, that our marriage was primary,
yes,
that it mattered more than our business.
Right.
And that if our business ever took precedent or us working on that business was causing us to fail in the marriage, we would dissolve the business before we would dissolve the marriage. Why do you think that that's important?
Well, I mean, it came from, we actually went through a season. It wasn't our own business. Just when you were, for those of you that don't know, Glenn was in ministry full time. He's been a youth pastor. He was an associate pastor. And so there was a period of time where we went through a season where you were so enveloped in what you were doing that the marriage was suffering, that you were putting that ahead of the marriage. And based on that and, the things that we went through to be able to deal with that and get through that, when it came time for us to start our own business, for you to go into business full time, for us to start our own business, we made a conscious decision then that, we would not allow that to happen again with our business because we saw the effects of that. Luckily we caught it before it got too bad.
Yes.
But like I said,
it was getting bad.
Yeah, like we said, we've seen other couples that it's gone too far and they can't come back.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And so we made a conscious decision, was like, our marriage is primary. I don't care about the business. I don't care about the money. I don't care about,
the opportunities that we get to work with other people, really.
Right, because right, and especially because of what we do. We deal with people with relationships, and the biggest thing was that I can't give you wisdom or guidance on your relationship if my relationship is in the toilet.
Right. That's just facts.
Right. And so we have to make sure that we're continually working on our relationship. We're continually, building ourselves up, so that we can then pour into other people. And so if we're busy giving to other people, but we're not building ourselves up and our relationship is crap, we can't be successful in what we do. And what I refuse to do, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and I'm not going to be fake. And I'm not going to be telling you to do something and I'm doing the opposite of it at home.
Guys, we call that leading while bleeding. Put that in the chat. Leading while bleeding. There are too many leaders that are leading while bleeding. Cherie and I don't want to be a part of that. And so that's really the premise of not only this talk, but what's going to be a book that we're working on that, Lord willing, we're going to have out before the end of 2020. But for today, I see a bunch of people saying that they're ready for this information. Number one, in order for you to make your business and your marriage flourish, step number one is that there's going to have to be a full disclosure of true aspirations. Put that in the chat. Full disclosure of true aspirations. When we say that, what do we really mean, babe?
That you both have to, like I said before, be on the same page. So whoever's vision it is, you both need to have buy-in from your other partner.
Yes.
And so you need to be able to express to them fully what it is that you're trying to do, where you're trying to go with it. And that's been expressed. That's not them assuming.
Yep.
You actually sit down and have a conversation. This is what I'm trying to do. This is the plan. This is where I see us going. These are the things we're going to have to do to get there. There's full disclosure of where you're trying to go, and also talking about what is that going to cost to be able to get there. And I'm not talking about financially. What is going to cost relationally, as far as time away. Time committed to, I'm going to have to work 10-hour days for the next year, 12-hour days for the next year, whatever it is. You've expressed that and you have buy-in from your spouse. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is that people don't get buy-in and they just, share, I want to do this. And the other person like, oh, okay. But then when the cost starts to build up,
rolling in,
you realize that there's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we know couples, guys, who literally started out on a business because it was a thought or an idea and it was a whim. Maybe it was a passion or something that they were passionate about, and they thought to themselves, oh, this will be a great business. Maybe they like to bake, and all of a sudden they just jumped out there, started baking, and then they're dragging their spouse along the way. And here's the challenge. There was never a plan put in place. And when I say in place, guys, I literally mean in writing.
Right.
I literally mean you sit down. I remember when you and I sat down and we strategized what this business was going to look like.
Right.
Now, we didn't have the full picture.
Right.
But we started somewhere.
Right. And we sit down every year and go over and reevaluate that.
Yes.
Reevaluate what steps need to take place, where we're going, what direction we're going in, how much time it's going to take. You know, we sit down and do that at least once a year.
Absolutely.
To make sure we're on the same page.
So I want you guys to talk candidly about your business and your personal goals. That's really what we're talking about. If you're ready for number 2, put the number 2 in the chat. For those of you guys who just hopped on, we're talking about what it looks like to put some things in place in order to make sure that your business and your marriage flourishes, because we're not in the business of doing business that supersedes our marriage. We're not going to be that couple. There are people, and I'm not knocking them, but I'm telling you, for us, we have seen that it works. It doesn't work more than it does. I'll put it that way.
Right.
And the reason is because it takes a certain amount of togetherness in order for both of those things to grow. As George Hawkins would say, one anothering. You gotta be able to prefer
Right.
that other person in a way that really only begins to take place, I think, when you write that down, when you put that stuff in writing. So number 2, I don't see anybody putting a number 2 in the chat. So maybe y'all washing dishes, or you eating breakfast, or you're not
And
paying
they didn't
attention.
invite us.
And you didn't invite us. That was rude. But if you're ready for number 2, I'm sorry, put that in the chat. So George says, yes, don't be vague. Be as specific as you can be.
Yes.
And George, I think that the reason why that's really important, man, is because unfortunately, it's those specifics, it's those details that will wreck the whole thing.
Yes.
Guys, y'all have to understand that and I'll give you a quick example. When I got into ministry, I knew I was called to do ministry. I knew that from a little boy. I knew that I was a servant. I knew that I was a person that cared about people. And as I grew up, once I accepted Christ and all those kinds of things, I recognized that at that particular point, this was an actual calling on my life. So when I got married, the first time I got married, I didn't communicate that well. Hence, 12 years later, the marriage came apart. Not just because of that, but because of a ton of other things that we just never talked about. So when we got married the second time around, I figured, you know what? Not going to make that mistake again. We're going to lay these things out. But here's the problem. I started making the mistake again because although we talked about it, I didn't write that down. And I wasn't very detailed. And I remember you saying, I did not think that in order to do this, we were signing a vow of poverty. Like, is that what I'm signed up for?
Right. And I think also, and this is where, going back to that full disclosure, because Glenn had been in ministry before, he knew more of what it was going to entail. I had no idea. I had never been in ministry.
Right.
I didn't have any family I had an uncle that was a pastor, but I didn't know the ins and outs.
Right.
I didn't know all of that. And so I had no idea what I was signing up for. I'm just like, oh, that sounds great. Okay, you're going to go in ministry full time.
Cool.
I have no idea. And then when the reality hit, I'm like, wait, hold, hey.
It was a problem.
I didn't sign up for that.
Absolutely. And it began tearing at the fabric of our relationship. So I think that was really, really important, and you guys definitely got to get that together. So number 2, we're going to say know your role. Put that in the chat. Know your role.
And I think the key thing with that, when we say know your role, it's know your strengths and operate in your strengths. It's not so much that, one person is know your position in the business. And so if your strength, like for me, my strength is administration and the finances, and that's what I handle. I'm not going to be the person doing the marketing of the company because that's not my role. That's not what I do, whereas that is what Glenn does. So you have to clearly define what your roles are, how you're going to function in the business together. And if you have a staff, you got to communicate to them, because often what happens, I've worked for companies in the past where it was a husband and wife owned the company, and the roles got blurred. It's like you would go to the wife to ask for certain things that really weren't her role.
Yep.
Because it had never been clearly defined. And then that created problems between them because she's saying okay to stuff that she's not supposed, or he's saying okay to stuff that he's not supposed to. So clearly identify what your roles are. And I think that should always be based on your strength.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I do want to add to that is that it's almost like parenting in the sense that when you have kids that will come and it is understood that mom thinks this way, dad thinks the other, dad is stronger at this than mom is, and vice versa. Here's what I know. The kids pick up on that.
Right.
They know who's who and what's what. And what you will find if those roles and responsibilities are not clearly defined, what will happen is that they will come in doing their very best to divide and conquer.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
That is their goal. They are trying to get you guys separated because they want what they want. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes what will happen in a business is that employees, clients, customers, you name it, will often slip in the gap. And if you're not careful because your roles weren't defined, you've sent the wrong message as to who you're supposed to go to. I can tell you right now, people who we coach, if they text me or if they say, hey, I got a question about my invoice or my billing statement or whatever the case may be, I will quickly say that is a Cherie question. Mm-hmm. Or you need to contact Maria, our assistant.
Right.
I have no idea. Sometimes I forget how much we even charge for stuff because that's not my lane.
Right.
And so for me, I will quickly because I know my role and I'm very, very clear and upfront with other people on what I do. So therefore, I'm not fielding questions, quite frankly, that are not in my wheelhouse.
Right. And it's funny. I'm sitting here giggling to myself. Early on in the business, I think people picked up on, because Glenn is much more of a people person than I am.
No.
Really, you are. And
not moi.
So they would go to him about things. I mean, even say they're experiencing some type of a financial challenge or whatever, or I'll put it this way, not a financial challenge, because we're both sensitive to that. But somebody will come in, do relationship, we know them, and they want the hookup.
Holla if you hear me.
So they gonna talk to him, cause he gonna be like, "Oh, I got you. You good? You good?
Oh, you good? Don't worry about it."
And I'm like, "Dude, this is a business.
Y'all, this is happening in real time.
We not giving this away.
We don't give away our products.
I mean, I'll work with somebody,
right? Absolutely.
If they can't,
we'll figure that out.
But it ain't free.
Right, absolutely. This is what we do for a living.
I'm like,
so Cherie is really quick on that, and the truth of the matter is
he the hookup man, and right. I'm like, we not doing that no more.
Right, George, I ain't messing with you. She said, no, Cherie, you're the greatest. Glenn is mean. Listen. When I coach out of my lion. But if you catch me in my flamingo, I'll give away the house, and we'll talk about that later. But guys, I'm telling you right now, it is a situation. Someone asked a question earlier. We're going to kind of get into this a little bit right now. But if you're ready for number 3, put a number 3 in the chat. If you're ready for number 3, put a number 3 in the chat. One last thing I'm going to say about knowing your role. When we say know your role, what we're also saying is clearly communicate that back and forth to one another. Cherie and I, there's an understanding that I have that your role is not only administration, but it's also operation. Right. It's how a thing flows.
Right.
So there are systems that we have in place that I'm not allowed to circumvent, even though I'm the CEO. Mm-hmm. And when I circumvent those systems, I'm not functioning in my role.
Right. And I like to put it this way. So the easiest way when you're in business together as spouses is you have to have regular meetings together. You have to make sure that you both are on the same page about everything. You cannot make decisions. I mean, even when it comes down to accepting speaking engagements, before Glenn says yes, we have to check the calendar. We talk about it. Is this a good thing? Is this, does this make sense to do this? He does not just randomly, sure, I'll do that.
Yep.
Sure, we'll do this. And it's like, that's a conflict, or that doesn't line up with us. So we regularly have conversations to make sure that we're in agreement about those type of things. So now that doesn't mean, he could take coaching clients, things like that, but even that, like if it's, something that's outside of the norm,
Yes.
we have to sit down and have a conversation about it.
And it's funny because we actually have sort of rules of engagement where that's concerned. And we've been doing this long enough that I intuitively know before I accept this one, I need to run that past Cherie. So for instance, I'll give you an example. If somebody wants me to come and speak for them, but it's on the West Coast, and I'm going to need to be out of pocket for a week. I'm going to jump on a plane, fly to California, and I'm going to be out of pocket for a week. I'm not going to accept that as speaking engagement without having a conversation with my wife. I don't care how much money they're paying me.
Right.
And the reason why is because it's going to cost her, because if I'm out of pocket for a week, that means she's going to pick up things and responsibilities within the business that I normally would run because I'm out of pocket. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so we are highly communicative when it comes to that. And I'm telling you, it's just so important. Is that my guy Ray Johnson? Talk about my bad though. Right. Just talking about look, you just stepped all over it and in it. My bad don't work over here, brother. We got to get that stuff squared away, because when we get to making mistakes, it's not only costly to the people in the business, but it's costly to our marriage.
Right, and we conduct this like a real business. I mean, if you think about a major business, any corporation, they have board meetings where they sit down and discuss. The CEO doesn't just make a call on something without going to the board and discussing it. And
right.
So
certain calls he's not going to make for
certain
sure.
Calls, right. So we sit down and we have those. I mean, even any business, your management team, they get together and make decisions. You know, the director doesn't just make a decision off the top of her head or his head without discussing it with somebody. And so this is where we come together and we make those decisions together, and that way it keeps it equal. Now, we do sometimes agree to disagree on certain things. But we agree to disagree on that.
Absolutely.
So it's not like he's just doing something and I don't know anything
All
about
willy-
it, or
all
I'm doing
willy-nilly.
something he doesn't know about.
You out there all willy-nilly, just doing whatever you want. No, that don't happen around here. Because at the end of the day, guys, our goal, come on, let's be honest, our goal, and we've established that in the beginning, is to grow the marriage just as strong as we're growing the business. So we asked for everybody, if you were ready for number 3, to put a number 3 in the chat. And what I want you guys to write down is keep it equal. Keep it equal. That's number 3. Keep it equal. When we talk about keeping it equal, there are a couple of things I want to deal with on this subject matter. But number 1, responsibilities in the organization can be different, but your work ethic should be the same. I need to make sure that we clarify this for people, Cherie. You and I are very different.
Right.
I mean, in many areas, we are polar opposites.
Correct.
We don't think alike. We don't communicate the same. We don't have the same kinds of ideas. So as a result of that, our execution looks really, really different.
Right.
But one of the things that I can honestly say is that you and I both have a sick work ethic. The amount of focus and energy that we bring to the table is equal.
Yes.
It just looks different in how we display it.
That's true.
Would that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's true. And that's where we share the load in the business. Even though we have different roles and we do different things, we share the load as equally as we can. And so even though Glenn may be more in the forefront and he's doing things, I'm just as busy in the background doing work. My work may not be seen by everybody else, but I'm working.
Absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely. One thing I also want to talk about is that when I say keep it equal, this is where, in my opinion, if your values are not mutual, if you don't share the same kinds of values and they are off, here's where what will happen. There is a disconnect. In the church world, we will call that being unequally yoked. In other words, you are not pulling the same weight. When we talk about a yoke, let me just give you a quick Bible lesson. When they talk about being unequally yoked, if you remember, if anybody who's ever grown up around a farm or know anything about, farming and agriculture and that sort of thing, when you team up horses or when you team up cattle and you're having them pull a plow, there is a yoke that's placed on both of them's head around their necks. The problem is that if you have one horse or one cow or an ox that's bigger, stronger than the other one, or one of them is feeble and maybe they're not quite up to speed, that one cow is going to pull harder and different than the other. Here's the problem. That will translate to crooked roads. Does that make sense? You're not going to plow straight.
Or you riding a tandem bike and the other person's not pedaling.
Come on, Cherie. Please break it down and bring it into 2020 for real, because that happened for real here in Virginia Beach. Somebody wanted to rent a bike.
The little tandem bike.
The little, oh, that's nice.
That's cute. Let's do that.
We should go do that. And we were walking down the boardwalk. We were fine. We had the grandbabies. We were doing ice cream. Everything was good.
Got in a little 4-seater buggy thing.
Right. With the 4 pedals. And then we knew them two weren't going to do no work.
So we
got this. But here's what I know. We didn't have this. So about halfway down the boardwalk, I'm realizing, why am I out of breath? Why am I panting? Why am I going through these changes? This is just a bicycle. Sure. When I realized over there, your girl was coasting. She was talking about, I quit a while back. I'm like, bruh, how you just gonna do that? That's not fair. At this particular point, we're not equal. We're not riding equally. I'm pulling most of the weight. And that becomes problematic. and when I say problematic,
on the golf course.
No, listen. We got stories for days where this one wanted to sign up for a us thing, and it wound up becoming a me thing. And here's the problem. The problem is that's going to seep over into the marital relationship.
Because it's not
Somebody's
fair.
going to be upset. And when people get upset in marriage and they're in business together, oh my God. Now the customers are like, I think they mad with each other. I don't think this is about us. Can you imagine us coaching a couple on how to communicate and we snapping at each other? Because we're upset. Because the night before I rented a bicycle thinking she was going to help. Y'all hear where I'm going with this? So what I want to tell you, I'm getting all choked up. I just want you guys to understand it is critical for you to keep it equal. If you're ready for number 4, put a number 4 in the chat. We're going to try and rattle through all of these today and help you guys out. If you're ready for number 4, put a number 4 in the chat. We're talking about how to, these 6 steps actually, in order to make your business and your marriage flourish. And if you're going to do that successfully, you're going to have to do some work. Right, I know, that's right, Christine. Share the load. That's good and so important. Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to share the load, because if you don't, I promise you, you're going to be in trouble. You got anything you want to add to that real quick?
No. I just could go into stories. But that's
yeah, she got stories for days. We got a ton of stories that this applies to. But I just want you guys to understand, it does matter that you both are on the same page. It does matter that you're pulling equally, but I don't want you to look at it from the standpoint of, quote, why am I doing more work than you? There are times where when I look over at the work you're doing, I get exhausted because it's work that I don't do.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh my God, she's working really hard. But at the same time, especially in these COVID situations, you've watched my process.
Yes.
And how I create and how I do what I do. And it's wore you out. Like, oh my God, like, bruh.
Are you done yet?
Are you finished yet? And it's like, nah, I'm not done yet. Because at this point, we both are committed to doing this equally. So we got a couple of number 4s in the chat. Here's what I want you guys to remember. And again, we're talking about how to get the marriage and the business to flourish together. I want y'all to remember how you spoke to each other on your first date. Put in the chat, remember the first date.
Remember the first date.
Remember the first date. Why is that important? Because here's what I'm going to promise you guys, is that there is in marriages, particularly ones who are with people who are in business, that little things begin to creep in and they will ruin the relationship if you're not careful.
You forget your manners.
You forget your manners. You forget that this is not only your business partner, but your friend.
Right.
You forget that that's your spouse. Like, there's a certain level of honor and respect that they're going to get, right? And so although I am the CEO and it's my decision, I don't get to yell, scream, fuss, and not say please and thank you.
Right. And I think that one thing that you have to be able to do when you're in business together with your spouse is be able to what we call code switch. You have to be able to change roles. Your role from being the wife to the business partner to being a friend to being the wife again. So when you're in the office together, you can't flow like you can't, I'm trying to think how to put this. I can't be the wife to him when we're in a business situation where there are certain things that I know that as his wife, he may let me get away with.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Or that, you know what I'm saying, because we're working. So I have to be able to switch. Now, the key to that, though, when we talk about the part, remember your first date, that does not mean now, so you have certain people that in the work environment that scream down on people, which I think is inappropriate. I don't care who you are. But I think that you should maintain that level of respect, that level of, like I said, maintain your manners with that person and have some preference towards that person, but not to the degree that you are now
catering or showing favor because of that.
Right. And I'll
give me an example.
I got a story again.
Please.
So when
we got a story to tell. It's okay.
When we first started dating,
yes,
we were working together with the youth choir.
Yes.
There was a situation that occurred that a certain person was late to an event.
I remember this.
And
it got real heated, y'all.
Now we're dating. So I'm like, I'm fed up with him. He's fired. You need to fire him now because I'm upset. And he's like, I'm not firing him. No, you need to fire. If you love me, you'll fire him.
Bruh, let me explain something to you. Here's what's truth. A, I love you. B, I'm not firing him. I understand that. But is that really a fireable offense? And would you want me to do that to you?
Well, we're not talking about me. We're talking about him, and he's late, and I'm fed up, and I'm tired, and you need to just fire him.
Y'all hear that? That ain't happening. that is not going to happen.
So that was inappropriate of me.
So what Cherie is saying is that when you do that, you have to also assume and understand that you don't, just because you have a relationship that allows you certain courtesies, if you will, you don't want to put yourself in a place where you're abusing them. And in the other sense, you don't want to put that in a place where now those lines get blurred, because now, are you my wife? Are you my business partner? Like, what's happening? Because now you're asking me to make a business decision based on your role as my wife.
Right.
All right, guys. I think we're back. YouTube needs to get their act together. Hey, man, welcome to the wonderful world of live. Here's what you know. The world is in the middle of a global pandemic. There are more people using the internet than ever before in the history of the internet. So we got a glitch. I don't know what happened, but we're back. So we'll give everybody a few minutes to come back. Y'all do me a huge favor and let everybody know that we're back if you can. We are back. ... Hashtag, we all need some help. So I just put that in the chat. So hopefully, guys, we'll get everybody back. So if you're back with us, put I'm back with you. I'm back. I'm here. I'm here. Put that in the chat. If you're back with us, put I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Babe, that was a bit of a nerve-wracking experience there.
Mm-hmm. But we're back now.
So we're back. So guys, let's just recap and then we'll wrap up, and hopefully everybody will catch the replay. So we're talking about, for those of you guys who are now back with us, it's good to see you. Do me a favor, let us know that you're back. Put I'm back in the chat. That way we can see that you're here.
Are we frozen again?
No. We're not frozen again.
Okay.
And I think that we should be fine. So here's what, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We'll do a quick recap. Again, we're talking about the 6 steps to make your business and your marriage flourish. Number 1, we said full disclosure of true aspirations. You cannot keep secret what you really want to build. That will ruin your marriage.
Right. Communicating your vision, communicating the plan, to your partner so that you both are on the same page.
Absolutely.
Number 2 is know your role. Clearly defining what each of your role is in the business, what your responsibilities will be, and ensuring that everyone involved knows who's responsible for what.
Absolutely. Number 3 is keep it equal. When we talk about keeping it equal, we want you guys to understand, although your responsibilities are different, your work ethic should be equal. In other words, you should not be putting in less effort.
Right.
Than the other person, although your effort will look different than the other person.
Right, you're both equally committed to the business.
Number 4, we said that do yourselves a favor, particularly our married people. You need to understand this. Remember how you spoke to each other on your first date.
Remember your manners.
Remember your manners. It's please and thank you. Just because I have the role of the CEO or I have the role of the business owner or the visionary doesn't mean I have the right to be disrespectful. Right. And the truth of the matter is I wouldn't have done that on a first date. I should not do it with my mate. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so I need some coffee after that. I get it. I understand. And number 5, let's go ahead and jump into number 5 now that everybody is back. Okay, Daryl, it's good to see you. Nikkei, it's good to see you. For all of you guys who are back with us, do me a favor, put I'm back so that we can know that you're back with us in the chat. But number 5, if you're ready for number 5, put a number 5 in the chat. Cherie, this is important because I think I am guilty of this more than anybody I know. Well, I won't say anybody I know. That's not true. But in our relationship, I'm definitely more guilty of this than you are. And I'm going to publicly now say, as I often say in real time, I apologize. And I am going to work on that. Because this one here is very difficult. And quite frankly, guys, Cherie calls me on this every single time it happens. If you're ready for number 5, put a number 5 in the chat. If you're ready for number 5, put a number 5 in the chat. And babe, I'm waiting for people to put in number 5 so I know that they're here. You got something to say other than the topic just to help them set it up?
Nope.
All right, so Cherie wants to talk about this really, really bad. If you guys are ready for number 5, I need to see a number 5 in the chat before we go further. Okay, Daryl, good. I got a number. I got at least one number 5. Okay, so here it is. I want you to put in the chat. Number 5 is pillow talk.
Boundaries.
Pillow talk. I want you to put /boundaries.
Boundaries.
Pillow talk /boundaries.
Boundaries.
Okay, somebody said that we're frozen again. I'm not sure if it doesn't look like we're frozen on our end. If we're frozen and you guys can't see us, let us know. But I got one person that says that we froze again. Not sure if that's everybody. It looks like we're not frozen, so we're going to keep going.
Okay.
So we talk about boundaries. Let me say this. Guys, you got to create rules when business talk is off limits.
Yes.
And this is a big one for you because I don't do this well.
No, you don't.
Come on.
No, you don't. So when you are in business together with your spouse, number 1, you need to have set business hours. You need to make sure you both agree upon what the set business hours, especially if you work out of the home. You need to have times that are dedicated business hours. You also need to have dedicated time off.
Right.
And you both need to understand that when you're off, you're off.
Right.
When you're off, you're off.
Do me a favor, give context to that because I know that this is really important to you.
So like on the weekends, usually Saturdays after we complete this show, usually by 12 o'clock, because sometimes Glenn we may have a coaching call. By 12 o'clock on Saturday, we're off. The rest of Saturday and Sunday. Glenn will typically, because he is connected to his phone.
Yes.
He'll see messages come in, or he'll see something come through and be like, hey, did you see that? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, are you going to respond to them? No, I'll respond to them on Monday when we're back in the office. Well, they're saying this. I'll respond to them on Monday when we're back in the office. Or he'll see something and he'll want to call a person back. Now, one thing that I have to stress to Glenn, yes, we are in the relationship business, but we are not counselors. We are not therapists. We are not, and even counselors and therapists, unless you are suicidal, they're not taking your call when they're off.
And most often, a counselor or a therapist will have on their answering service.
If this is an emergency, contact
please call
911.
Right.
So maybe we need to put that on our message. If this is an emergency, call 911 because Glenn will get calls and he'll think it's a 911 and he has to respond. Now, I will say this, he is better than he used to be. He is much better than he used to be. He used to be, and a lot of this is spillover from his previous work in ministry where he was on 24 hours a day. And so he's gotten a lot better with putting some boundaries in place. When the thing that I think for you, when we're somewhere, if we're not actively engaged in something, you don't know how to unplug. Mm-hmm. So for you, unplugging is sitting looking at your phone. Mm-hmm. So we'll be over the kid's house and we're chilling. We're all chilling. Everybody's sitting around talking, whatever. If you're not engaged in the conversation, you're on your phone. Mm-hmm. And so you don't disconnect. And I think that it's very important for the health of your relationship and for your health as an individual.
Right.
I think you have to learn how to disengage from your business. Particularly if you're married together, you need to have times that are designated, like our bedroom. We don't talk about business. We're not bringing that into the bedroom.
Right.
Now we may dream and vision, dream about our future, things like that, but we're not going to sit and have a full-blown business meeting in our bedroom. We're not doing that.
Right.
Because that is our sanctuary, and we have to maintain that as our sanctuary.
So real quick, guys, and we're almost done because we don't want to be much longer, but I want to give you guys sort of just this idea of boundaries mean that, listen, when you operate fully inside of the lanes, it should wear you out. It should exhaust you to the point that where when you're off, you're spent. Like you don't have anything else. Now, when you are a person like me, who is a strong, very high I, who is extremely extroverted, I process out loud. That's how I don't think about things internally. I don't sit still and in a corner and think through things or mull through things. I typically process out loud. So if I'm thinking of something, I will let it come out of my mouth. I don't generally rehearse stuff in my mind. I'm not a big journaler. Does that make sense? What I've had to do is adopt this idea of writing it down and coming back to it later so that I can stay in the moment, if that makes any sense. So number 5, we said pillow talk. And really what this is creating rules that about when business talk is off limits. You have to have rules or boundaries around that because if not, it's going to spill over and it's going to absolutely damage your marriage. Because now, and I will say this last thing, I used to say things when we were in ministry like this, which was hurtful. And I'm going to say it out loud so y'all can hear it because I shouldn't have said it then. Cherie and I have long gotten past this, but I would make references to my job as a minister back in the day to that of a doctor. If I was a pediatrician and I was on call, you wouldn't have a problem if I answered a phone to deliver a baby at 2:00 in the morning. So why do you have a problem if I'm answering somebody's call because their parent died or because they had a fight with their spouse and I should not be able, I'm their pastor for crying out loud. Why shouldn't I respond to that? Here's a huge and major difference. Because it is not my responsibility, unlike it is the doctor. Y'all need to understand that. As a therapist, they're going to tell you to call 911.
Right.
A counselor on the weekends will tell you, if you contact me after hours and you're having a breakdown, call 911 and we will get even your primary care physician. That's what the emergency room is for. They're not going to reply to you in the middle of the night. The only reason a doctor does that with a baby is because they are on call.
Right.
You have to understand, on call doesn't mean all the time.
Right. They rotate.
They rotate. Call. They're not on call every single solitary day.
Right.
7 days a week, 365 days out of a year. Does that make sense? That's where I had a disconnect. And it almost ruined our relationship because I can just feel the energy from back in the day coming this way because that stuff still messes with you when I do it again.
Right.
Because it reminds you of the old me.
Right. Because you were on call 24/7 and it's like you were on call for other people.
Yes.
24/7.
Yes.
And so I think that's why boundaries are essential. You have to have boundaries in place. You have to make sure you establish that from the beginning.
You will burn up if you don't.
And it will create challenges in your relationship. So you both need to have boundaries. Discuss them. What are healthy boundaries for you in your relationship? And I think you definitely have to build in those times of disconnecting. You have to, for your own personal health as well as your relationship health. And another note on that, also make sure that if you're in business with your spouse, make sure you guys have interest outside of your business, things that you do to keep your relationship fresh, that you're doing things together outside of the business. Because what will typically happen is that your conversations will always go back to the business, because that's the thing that you guys are in.
And you
at
do
that
that
time.
probably more than anything else.
And so you have to create other things outside of the business for you guys to stay connected on and to keep doing.
Right, absolutely. And absolutely, Linda Lee, you and I are two peas in a pod in that regard. We need to do better. Last one, put number 6 in the chat if you're ready for number 6. This is the last one. I apologize for the technical difficulties this morning, guys, where we kind of froze there a little bit.
The wonders of live.
But that's the wonders of life. If you're ready for number 6, put a number 6 in the chat. Babe, one of the things I will tell you is that now I understand why it's so important to our marriage that I draw a line, because quite frankly, if I'm not careful, I will discredit or devalue our marriage by showing preference to the business, by bringing the business into the marriage when it's time for us to be just an us. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? And unfortunately, what happens is, guys, is that's how you ruin a marriage. And I've done that before. Here's what I'm committed to doing. I'm not doing that no more. I'm not doing that no more. So number 6 is till death do us part. Till death do us part. And what that really means is both I need you guys to have a mindset. I want you to put in the chat mindset. Till death do us part is a mindset. Both a strong marriage and building a successful business should be approached with a till death do us part mentality. Meaning, I'm not quitting on you.
Right. And I'm not quitting on you. I'm not quitting on our relationships, and I'm not quitting on our business.
Yep.
But now this goes back to what I said earlier. But at the end of the day, and I hate that term, at the end of the day.
Use something else.
You can't do it in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
But
use something else. What would you use instead of saying at the end of the day?
I don't know, Dale. I can't think of nothing to use.
Okay, well, you don't have to use anything. Okay.
But so if it comes down to choosing between the business or the relationship,
the bottom line is that's a good one. Instead of the end of the day,
I don't like that either.
Oh, okay. Wow. Anyway,
the relationship should always come first.
Right.
So yes, you approach your business and your relationship, you're both equally committed.
Correct.
And so when we say till death do us part, you want to go into it committed. That you both are committed to this. You're both committed to the end result. You're both committed to doing the work. But if it ever gets to a point where where you have to make a choice between one or the other, the choice should always be the marriage.
So one thing I do want to add to that really quickly, when we're talking about till death do us part, I want you guys to understand that the mindset of many entrepreneurs is one that we start out the gate really well. Mm-hmm. We come up with all the ideas. We can see the vision. We can see how to execute it. We can even see how to generate the resources. How will this work? We know our elevator pitches backwards and forwards. We understand who we are, what we do, why we do it, and who we do it for. That's something that we can rattle off the top of our heads. Here's the problem. When things get sticky and when things get tight, oftentimes, if you do not have a till death do we part mentality, you'll begin to look for the way out.
Right.
You'll begin to look for the buyout. You'll begin to look for the stimulus package. You'll begin to look for the thing that will save you, a rope, a life jacket. And the challenge with that is, in a marriage, that's called a divorce.
Right.
Does that make sense, guys? And if you make room for divorce, if you make room for we can get out of this, the problem is that opportunity will present itself over and over and over again, and it'll serve to undermine the marriage, and it certainly will undermine the business. I hope that makes sense.
Right. I mean, we've actually experienced coaching couples that have said out of their mouths, well, I mean, we're going to get married, but I mean, if it don't work out, we'll just separate. And it's like, divorce should not even be an option when you get married. When you get in business, the business dissolving should not be an option. Now, things happen.
Right.
And that's where when I say that if it comes down to you having to choose between one, you should choose the marriage over the other. But that does not mean that you're going into this already with a contingency plan in place.
Because if you
or
do,
like if it get too hard,
we can
just
always
quit. No,
It's like-
it's going to get hard. It's going to get
real
tight.
hard.
Your funds are going to get tight. It's going to be a situation. It's going to be rough.
Yep.
And if you are not prepared on the front end to endure and go through those things and push through those seasons, you'll never get to the other side and see success in your business. I mean, we've gone through those seasons where it was tight. It's
Real
been
tight.
really tight.
Yeah.
But we stuck through it.
Really
we
tight.
pushed through that. We did what we needed to do. We tightened our belts. We did what we needed to do to start to get on the other side. And so you have to be willing to go through those things, because it's not going to be roses and everything the whole time. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have things to go through. So if you go into this with a contingency plan that, like even when you went into business full time, we did say, okay, you have a year to be able to start to generate income.
Right.
It wasn't even to make a profit. You had a year
to begin generating revenue.
Generating income, because if within
Revenue
a year, if you
a
could not
better word.
generate income,
The revenue is the better word.
revenue. Okay, generate revenue. You had a year to generate revenue. If you did not generate any revenue, then maybe you were going in the wrong direction. This wasn't a business that was feasible.
Right. It certainly wasn't something moving towards profitability.
Right, but that was not having a way out. That was giving him a goal to strive towards. And also, if that wasn't proven to be feasible, okay, let's rewrite the business plan. Let's go in another direction and see if this is it.
Not dissolve the business. I want y'all to hear what she just said, but you game plan, you sit down and you rework the plan so that it's something that makes sense as you go on. Guys, I apologize again for all the technical difficulties. Hope you guys were able to hang through. For those of you guys that came back, appreciate you. Again, we're talking about the 6 steps to make your business and your marriage flourish. Guys, these principles are principles that Cherie and I use all the time. We are not perfect. We get this twisted and messed up on a regular basis. But the reason we don't get stuck there and we don't lose as often as most others is because we're committed till death do we part. We're not giving up on our marriage, and we don't have a mindset to give up on the business of serving people, because quite honestly, our passion, our why, if you will, is so big that it makes the what worth it. It makes what we have to go through worth the effort, because the why, and for us, the why is that children don't have to grow up and recover from their childhood. When it comes to coaching parents, the why is that when singles get married, that they can stay married over a long period of time and they don't have to quit because they've never seen it done. The why is for couples that they don't have to just take the out clause of this ain't working, so let's dissolve it, and they are two whole individuals bringing their whole selves to a marriage, and they're willing to make this work for a lifetime so that they can leave a legacy. Those are our whys, and we make them huge so that we do not quit, because at the end of the day, if you're going to get to any place of significance, you cannot do that by yourself, because we all need some help. Y'all be good. Appreciate y'all for rocking with us. It's a little bit longer. Sorry about the pain points, but y'all, hopefully this helped you, and we're going to pick up and go in another direction next week, but we're excited.
Right. If you'd like to learn more information about the different programs and different services that we offer, please go to our website, www.glenn, with 2 N's, pbrooksjr.com. Also, singles, if you know any singles, if they'd like to sign up for the upcoming Singles Intensive in July, there's information there. And we hope to see you next Saturday.
Yep.
Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Enjoy the weekend. Get out. Enjoy the weather. And we will talk to you
next week. Yeah, guys, by the way, 8 a.m. every Saturday morning, we're here live. Tell somebody, share this out with somebody. And if you've not subscribed to the page already,
please
do me a favor, do that. Ring the bell so that you can get the notifications whenever we go live or when we post new content, because we all need some help. Y'all be good. Let's talk real soon.
Bye, guys.